Karen, we begin with the latest in the investigation into United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's murder in New York. The suspect, Luigi Mangione, remains behind bars in Pennsylvania, where he was arrested with a homemade gun, $10,000 in cash, and a manifesto against the health industry. Here's New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
We got the gun in question back from Pennsylvania. It's now at the NYPD crime lab. We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide.
NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch also says the crime lab matched Mangione's fingerprints to a water bottle and an energy bar found near the scene. Mangione is fighting extradition to New York to face a murder charge. His lawyer, Thomas Dickey, says his client has to be presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Meanwhile, Nathan, the NYPD is investigating a series of wanted posters that have cropped up in Manhattan. One of them has Brian Thompson's photo with a red X crossed over it. Others show executives from Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, and American Express. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg says celebrating a murder is abhorrent.
I've sit across the table from families who've had a loved one killed. And to think of people celebrating that, it's so challenging to wrap my mind around that.
Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, the NYPD says police have seen a surge in online threats against executives since Brian Thompson's murder.
And now let's turn to politics, Karen. President-elect Donald Trump has reportedly invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration next month. We get the details from Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
CBS News says it's unclear whether Xi has accepted the invitation. In last weekend's broadcast of NBC's Meet the Press, Trump said he had communicated with Xi recently, but he declined to say what they had discussed. Now, Trump campaigned on placing tariffs on all Chinese goods with 60% duties. And last month, he vowed to impose an additional 10% duty if Beijing doesn't help stem the flow of fentanyl coming across the U.S. southern border. Meantime, China is preparing for a potential trade war by showcasing a new range of tools. This includes restrictions on exports of rare materials and a probe into NVIDIA. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Doug, thank you. Well, one person who will not be at Trump's inauguration, FBI Director Christopher Wray. He told the Bureau workforce that he plans to resign at the end of President Biden's term in January.
After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January and then step down.
FBI Director Christopher Wray's announcement comes a week and a half after Trump said he would nominate loyalist Kash Patel for the job.
Well, Karen, Trump has tapped another ardent supporter to be part of his team, Kari Lake, the former television anchor who ran unsuccessfully for the U.S. Senate and for governor in Arizona, is Trump's pick to be the next director of Voice of America. The organization began broadcasting during World War II. It provides news in more than 40 languages to audiences and readers around the world.
Nathan, Meta Platforms has donated $1 million to President-elect Donald Trump's inaugural fund. It's part of an effort to build a positive relationship with the administration after a tense history. Meta owns Facebook and Instagram, platforms that Trump used heavily during his first term until his accounts were suspended following the riot at the Capitol. Meta banned his accounts out of concern that Trump would spur further violence by denying Biden's election victory. Trump's accounts were reinstated in 2023.
Karen, Elon Musk, whose wealth has been turbocharged since Trump's win last month, has reached a new milestone, and we get the details on that from Bloomberg's Valerie Teitel.
He has become the first person to exceed $400 billion in net worth. It comes down to $447 billion as tracked by the Bloomberg's Billionaires Index. It's the latest milestone for Elon Musk, the world's richest person. It also saw the biggest one-day wealth jump on record for an individual, $62.8 billion he added to his net worth. Some of that due to the rally in Tesla shares and a share sale in SpaceX.
Bloomberg's Val Teitel says Musk has added about $218 billion to his net worth since the start of the year.
Well, Nathan, President-elect Trump is slated to ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange today. Investors have seen the stock market soar to new heights since the election as they cheer the president-elect's plans to cut taxes and deregulate.
As for markets this morning, Karen, futures are pointed lower after a tech-driven rally on Wall Street. The Nasdaq 100 climbed 1.9% yesterday to a record, while the S&P 500 rose 0.8%, near a recent peak. Victoria Fernandez is chief market strategist at Crossmark Global Investments.
Sentiment is high because we feel like there's going to be a pro-business administration coming in. That should be good for businesses, good for the labor market. So there's these elements that are supporting this economy, but I do think we have to be a little bit cautious once we get through the inauguration. Choppy markets will probably be coming back.
Crossmark's Victoria Fernandez notes Wall Street's fear gauge, the VIX, fell below 14 yesterday. That's an indication the market is expecting calm in the near term.
Well, Nathan, the rally was driven in part by yesterday's CPI report. It cemented expectations the Fed will keep cutting interest rates, and we'll get another reading on inflation this morning with the Producer Price Index for November. We get a preview with Bloomberg's Michael McKee.
Prices at the factory gate are forecast to have risen in November, much the same as consumer prices reported yesterday. But like the CPI, what will matter is the composition of the increases, what's up and what's down. Will it reinforce the Fed's confidence the economy remains on track to get to its 2% target? The PPI matters because the Fed's target is based on the Personal Consumption Price Index, an alternate to the CPI. And the PCE, which comes out at the end of the month, incorporates a number of data points from the PPI report. So any market reaction may not come from what we see, but from what economists and markets think we'll see ahead. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Mike, thanks. In Europe, we got a surprise move from the Swiss National Bank. It unexpectedly cut its interest rate by 50 basis points this morning to 0.5%. And later this morning, the European Central Bank is expected to cut rates for the fourth time this year.
Well, Nathan, the Fed makes its final rate decision of the year next week. And ahead of that, we've been speaking with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen before she leaves office next month. Yellen says the Trump administration should continue the dialogue she's reestablished with China, and she's sending a warning about tariffs.
Broad-based tariffs, almost all economists agree that what they will do is hurt us by raising prices, possibly substantially, and making it more expensive for firms that need inputs from China to be able to acquire them, and harm our competitiveness of firms that rely on those imports.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen spoke with Bloomberg's David Gura ahead of the next round of economic talks between the U.S. and China. Those are set for today on the sidelines of a Group of 20 deputies meeting in Johannesburg.
Let's check some stocks on the move this morning, Karen. Shares of Adobe are down more than 10% in early trading. The company, known for its software for creative professionals, gave a disappointing annual sales outlook. That's underscoring concerns Adobe may lose business to emerging artificial intelligence-based startups.
And Nathan, Microsoft plans to take an $800 million charge after General Motors said it was shutting down its autonomous taxi initiative. Microsoft had announced a minority investment in GM's Cruise in 2021, part of a $2 billion investment round in the self-driving car startup. And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. We'll have the latest on South Korea in just a moment. But first, we have some breaking news. President Joe Biden is commuting the sentences of roughly 1,500 people who were released from prison and placed on home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic, and is pardoning 39 Americans convicted of nonviolent crimes. It is the largest single-day act of clemency in modern history. South Korea's opposition filed a second impeachment motion against President Yoon Suk-yeol today, with the likelihood of its passage increasing as more ruling party members indicate they will support it. The motion was filed after Yoon made a defiant speech earlier in the day in which he tried to justify his shock martial law declaration last week and insisted he would fight any case against him. Yoon through an interpreter.
Dear citizens, the opposition party is accusing me as a felon and is now trying to remove me from the presidency immediately. I will not give in to their demands.
The Democratic Party needs to secure 200 votes in Parliament to pass the motion. An attempt to impeach him last Saturday failed to reach that threshold after Yoon's People Power Party boycotted the vote. Southern California fire officials say the fast-moving Franklin fire is 7% contained. Incident Commander Dusty Martin says it's so far burned over 4,000 acres.
Currently, we have 6,300 citizens that are evacuated out of their homes, and I want you to know that we do not take that lightly. Our team, our unified command, we are working diligently to get the area secured to be able to get people back into their homes.
Incident Commander Dusty Martin also says the wildfire has destroyed about a dozen homes. Finally, what's up with low-flying drones hovering over parts of New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania in recent days? They are much larger and faster than those typically used by hobbyists. A group of New Jersey mayors attended a briefing yesterday on the sightings of the drones. Local officials are calling on the FBI to speed up the investigation and for the federal government to take action. The Quannock Township Mayor Ryan Hurd attended the briefing and said citizens in his town are concerned for their safety.
We need to know where they're lifting off of, where they're going to, why they're doing it. We need to solve this problem, and we need to solve this problem now.
Mayor Hurd says the low-flying drones are just a couple of 100 feet over a house. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update, brought to you by Tri-State Audi. Here's John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The Bill Belichick hiring at North Carolina is stunning. Not just that he's taking a college coaching job after 48 consecutive NFL seasons, but that it's at a school known much more for basketball. Carolina hasn't won an ACC football title in 44 years, but in the release that came out last night, Belichick said he's always wanted to coach college football. It's what his father did. In fact, Steve Belichick, before a 34-year run at Navy, was a Tar Heels assistant when his son Bill was an infant. And Belichick talked about college football while on ESPN earlier this week.
As a pro coach, you always go back every year and go to different schools and look at their players and see their programs and learn from those coaches and their situations as well. So, I've had a chance this year to take a longer look at college football during the college season as opposed to in the spring from the draft perspective. That's been interesting.
It's expected that his son, Steve, who coached under him at New England, currently at the University of Washington, will be a Carolina assistant, perhaps eventually replace his father as head coach. The Knicks are not going to Vegas for the NBA Cup semifinals, looking like they would be. At the Garden had a 12-point lead, but Atlanta, with a 25-6 run in the third quarter, went on to win 108-100. Hawks helped by 22 offensive rebounds, and by the Knicks making only 11 of 42 three-pointers. An off night for Jalen Brunson. He shot 5 of 15. Atlanta will now play Milwaukee. Houston will take on Oklahoma City. The Rockets, a 91-90 win over Golden State. Much needed win for the Rangers in Buffalo. Mika Zibanejad scored 7 minutes in, stayed 1-0 for 46.5 minutes, and then each team scored twice over the last 6.5. Rangers won 3-2. St. John's a 99-77 win over Bryant. At the winter meetings, the Red Sox sent 4 prospects to the White Sox for Chicago's best pitcher, Garrett Crochet. The Giants making yet another quarterback change. Drew Lock has a heel injury. They'll go back to Tommy DeVito Sunday at MetLife against Baltimore. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Karen Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. We turn now to our exclusive conversation with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She joined Bloomberg's David Gura for a wide-ranging discussion from the Treasury Department. They touched on the prospect for expanded tariffs in a second Trump administration, the federal deficit, and the relationship between the U.S. and China. Let's listen in.
I do think it's important to have ongoing communications at all levels, from the president and Xi talking to senior U.S. officials to staff that need to communicate. Just having open channels of communication is valuable, and I believe it will be seen as continuing to offer value. These are channels by which we can make clear what we're unhappy about, where our concerns are and why we have them. Well, we have significant concerns about Russia's economic policies that we discuss in these channels. It's also the case that we have shared global interests, whether it's in climate change, combating pandemics, dealing with potential financial disruptions that could affect global financial markets. We're also using these channels to build trust in channels for cooperation so that we can work together where our interests coincide. So there's no question that we have serious concerns both from a national security point of view and a broader economic view with China's behavior. But nevertheless, as the two largest economies in the world, it's critical to have open channels of communication. It helps avoid misunderstandings.
You have a particular insight into what makes your counterparts tick, I imagine, through those conversations that you've had. And so we've seen the president-elect talk about large, universal, punitive tariffs. Do you have any insight into how they might respond if they are threatened with something like that?
I really don't want to make a forecast. Many countries, when they're faced with unilateral actions of that sort, look for ways to retaliate, and my guess would be that they would do that. We have in areas of concern where I've expressed repeatedly concerns with overcapacity that is developed in Chinese advanced manufacturing industries and clean energy, semiconductors, and the like. We think it reflects active